You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next, the May 26th meeting of the Michigan City Plan Commission. You can get more information for this meeting at www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Okay, it's 6:01. I think we'll call the meeting to order this evening. And Mr. York, would you call the roll for us?
1 second. Okay, I'm going to call the roll. Mr. Balling is absent. Mr. Fitzpatrick? Present. Mr. Granquist?
Here.
Mr. Gresham? Here. Mr. Klinder?
Present.
Mr. Latchford?
Here.
Mr. Zimmer is absent. Attorney Hill?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, we have a quorum. I'll briefly read the policy of conduct and procedures. The policy of conduct and procedures for the Michigan City Plan Commission states that the commission is composed of 9 persons. By statute, 5 must vote affirmatively to approve a petition. So we've got 5 present here. So for the petitioners, we'll need a unanimous vote tonight on any petition. Thus, whenever less than a full board is present, the petitioner may wish to continue the hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on a petition or to the board commission in general at the end of the meeting may do so by approaching the speaker's roster and giving your name and address. Comments should be addressed to the Plan Commission, not to a petitioner or remonstrator or others in the audience. The Plan Commission vote is based on the evidence presented. So the agenda here, next item will be the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda or make any changes?
I think it sounds like one of our petitions has been withdrawn or continued.
That's correct. They have asked for a continuance. I will talk a little bit more about that in their, I guess, in their new business. Is that appropriate?
When they're on the agenda, call them.
Yeah, we would need to remove it from the agenda. Otherwise, we'd hear it tonight.
Okay. Yes. They've asked for a continuance. Yep.
Should we, is it more appropriate to vote for the continuance at this time, Mr. Hale?
I think what you have under consideration is the roll or the agenda.
Yeah.
Approval of the agenda.
Maybe we'll deal with that at the time that the petition would come up, which would be next, I guess.
Since it is on
Understood.
the agenda.
Okay, well, in that case, I will move to approve the agenda as submitted tonight.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. York.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Mr. Granquist?
Yes.
Mr. Gresham?
Yes.
Mr. Klinder?
Yes.
Mr. Latchford?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting last month on April 26, 2022. We've all received a copy of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve or a motion or any corrections to make?
If there are no corrections to be made by the board or the group, I would move to approve as submitted.
There's a motion to approve the minutes as submitted. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Mr. Granquist?
Yes.
Mr. Gresham,
Yes.
Mr. Klinger,
Yes.
Mr. Latchford.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Minutes have been approved. Next item on the agenda are the petitions. We have two petitions listed on the agenda, petition A and petition B. And we've been informed that there has been a continuance, so Mr. York, would you?
Yes, sorry about that. So petition 901-22, a request for Marquette Mall properties in Sterling Capital for primary and secondary plat approval for a minor subdivision located at parcel 460505 476-012-000009, more commonly known as 4027 Franklin Street. They have asked for a continuance tonight. And yeah, they just asked for a continuance tonight.
So we
Would
have
you
a
get, they wanted to know if you guys would entertain a continuance.
With that in mind, are we able to continue this to a June meeting without having re-notifications or anything like that, Mr. Hale?
I've been in contact with their counsel, and I think the two of us will work that out. That is one of the issues.
Okay. In that case, I would move to continue petition 901-22, sections 1 and 2 to the June meeting at this time.
We have a motion to continue the petition 901-22, Brand 1 and 2. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Mr. Granquist?
Yes.
Mr. Gresham?
Yes.
Mr. Klinder?
Yes.
Mr. Latchford?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item on the agenda is petition P-100-22, amended petition. And Mr. York, would you?
This is a request by AMS 2022 BTS-Michigan City, Indiana LLC for rezoning from B2 and R1B to M1 located between US Highway 20 and Paz Road next to and near Johnson Road for the purpose of operating a warehousing facility. And they are represented tonight by Attorney Bradley J. Adamski. And with that, I'll call Mr. Adamski forward and hand the floor over to him.
Thank you, Skylar, and good evening, board members. My name is Brad Adamski. I'm an attorney at Drayton Beege, Cerugo and Elliott out of LaPorte. I'm here on behalf of the petitioners, also known as Ambrose Group. I think if we refer to them as Ambrose instead of all the initials, that may be easier for you all tonight. They're the developer purchasing property as identified off of Highway 20 and Paz Road near Johnson Road, about 130 to 140,000 acres. They're acquiring the property from three property owners currently: Pritz Family LLC, Trennis Bradford and the Trennis Bradford Revocable Trust, and the Hire Wisniewski Family Farm LLC. We have appropriate documentation to be here on their behalf as part of this petition. This is the first time we've been before you tonight, the first time we've been before the public, but not the first time we've been discussing this matter with the city. In fact, City Council has gone through the process of annexing this land into the city so that we could be here before you tonight, because previously this acreage was part of unincorporated Michigan City or outside in LaPorte County. So the purpose that we're asking for the rezoning, the majority of the property right now is zone B2. There's one small corner of it where there's a house that's zoned R1B, but we're asking for the entirety of the parcel to be rezoned to M1. We've been in discussions with the city about that as far as the ultimate intended use of a warehousing facility on the property. With the city's instruction, we've determined that M1 is probably the least intrusive or least expansive, I guess, zoning that could get us to what we need without opening it up too much for concern for the city. So I would point out that as part of the annexation process, there was a fiscal plan that was prepared on behalf of the city. That fiscal plan included this property being rezoned to M1. So that was already part of the consideration before the city council that this would ultimately be light industrial property. I do have representatives of Ambrose here with me tonight to answer any specific questions the board members may have or the public may have. I can say that, you know, the use of M1 specifically for warehousing and the location of the property, the intended access is going to be off of Highway 20. I know that's a concern, whether it would be Johnson or Paz Road, but Highway 20 would be the access to the finished entity. So with that, I've open to any questions the board may have.
Yes, certainly. This is the Michigan City Planning Commission, May 26, 2022. This is case P-100-22, AMS 2022 BTS-Michigan City. The request is rezoning of property from present R1B and B2 to M1 light industrial. Staff analysis. The property in question is approximately 140 acres of land and currently zoned B2 general commercial and a small portion of land zoned R1B single family residential. According to Indiana Code 367-4-306, in considering a request for a rezoning, the Plan Commission shall pay reasonable regard to 1, the comprehensive plan, MC 2040 comprehensive plan, 2, current conditions and the character of current structures and uses in each district, 3, the most desirable use for which the land in each district is adapted, 4, the conservation of property values throughout the jurisdiction, and 5, responsible development and growth. Staff makes the following findings. 1, that the petition concerns a request to rezone approximately 140 acres located in general between US 20 North, Paz Road South, and Johnson Road East, and that the real estate consists of approximately 140 acres, and that the majority of the real estate is currently zoned as B2 general commercial, and only a very small portion zoned R1B single family. 4, that the petitioner requests that the real estate be rezoned to M1 light industrial, and 5, that the real estate was located in LaPorte County and not in Michigan City until it was annexed by Michigan City in April of this year, 2022. As such, the comprehensive plan did not include this property. There are very few properties of this size, 140 acres, in Michigan City with frontage on a designated state heavy haul route, US 20. Michigan City has a need for and greatly benefits from large-scale light industrial uses. Therefore, the requested change in zoning will be consistent with the general provisions and goals of economic benefits related to such light industrial uses, as set out in the Michigan City Comprehensive Plan. 6, currently, the US Highway 20 carries heavy traffic and is an Indiana designated heavy haul route, which is necessary for light industrial. Also, this area along US 20 supports primarily commercial and industrial uses, retail furniture, wholesale building materials, automobile dealerships, roofing companies, storage buildings, etc. In addition, the city recently rezoned a large parcel to M2 heavy industrial only 2,300 feet away. Such diverse uses will not be adversely impacted by the requested change in zoning based on the history of development along US Highway 20. 7, that given the significant shortage in large sites for light industrial uses, providing this site will be used for light industrial is the most reasonable use, given that the past development in this area has not had any adverse effect on surrounding property values. And 8, that the development along US Highway 20 in particular has led to increase in land sales and other development, which has meant increased land values and benefits to the surrounding area. Currently, a new sewer main is planned to be installed along this section of US 20, and that the community will benefit from development of this large site, which is consistent with community growth and development along major corridors. 10, that the real estate borders some residential uses, but such uses are not dense, and much of it has remained undeveloped because it is more suited for commercial and industrial uses. And 11, that there will be significant benefit to Michigan City in terms of construction and permanent jobs, and that the development of single light industrial uses on this large scale have no significant adverse effects. 12, that there is no established neighborhood plan, and that 13, that the planning department staff has determined that the requested change in zoning will better promote and facilitate preservation of property values, environment, and uses in the surrounding area. Current serious and significant interest in real estate has demonstrated to the staff that combining the site and rezoning it will have a large benefit to the city. And 14, that the real estate is close to all needed amenities for light industrial use, in particular adjacent to an Indiana designated heavy haul route. Staff recommendation: the planning staff has reviewed the recommended request and approval and recommends approval of petition P-100-22. Sorry, that was so long-winded.
Mr. Adamski, for the petitioner, do you have any response, clarification, or comment on the staff report?
No, we would agree with the staff report and what was said in it. I think we'll see if there are any comments from the public, and then we can address those before I get into anything further.
Okay, and Mr. Hale, attorney, do you have some comments or attorney report? And
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Grenquist. You have before you, and I sent earlier, a written attorney report. It's for this petition P-100-22 amended. The petitioner is AMS 2022 BTS Michigan City, Indiana LLC. The owners of the property in question are Pritz Family LLC as to one parcel of land, Trennis Bradford and Trennis Bradford Revocable Trust as to two additional parcels of land, and Hire Wisniewski Farm, Indiana Farm LLC as to a fourth parcel of land. I'll explain and discuss that in a minute. The request is to rezone this property, as Mr. York indicated, from primarily B2 with a small parcel of R1B to a M1 light industrial zoning designation. Excuse me. This property is located between US Highway 20 and Paz Road, next to, near, and adjacent at parts to Johnson Road on the east. You're familiar with the process. When we have a zoning request before this body, petitioners are permitted by law and our zoning ordinance to apply for a rezoning change. And they do that by submitting a petition as they have done in this case. Then the procedure to be followed by this body is to hold a public hearing to consider the proposed request for rezoning, and then to send it on by certification to the Michigan City Common Council in one of three fashions: one with a favorable recommendation, or two with an unfavorable recommendation, or three with no recommendation. So upon time to vote on your considerations, it would be by way of a certification to the Common Council, but with one of those three recommendations. I think it's pertinent for me to note that this petition for rezoning includes, as Exhibit A, a legal description of all four parcels. You have a copy of that. I sent it to you. It is attached to the petition, and I think it's very important that any vote to consider this matter makes specific reference to the property to be rezoned is that contained in Exhibit A in this legal description. The reason I say that is that the maps and diagrams that were submitted with the petition, specifically a ward map, a Schneider document drawing, and a couple of Beacon overhead maps. The Schneider map isn't truly a survey. So I noted that there is no survey, overall survey for all this parcel of land. I made it my job to check on the legal descriptions and to confirm that that comports with and actually describes the property on the Schneider and that the petitioner is asking for. It's marked in yellow. I think you all have a copy of that. You've seen it. The legal description describes that property. The parcel that is the Pritz parcel, as shown on this and as shown on the other maps that are part of the petition, include an entire parcel of land. What is asked to be rezoned is only part of that land. The legal description actually and factually describes the appropriate portion of the parcel. But I submitted to you with my report my haphazard attempt at a Beacon report showing where it is and why that parcel, which is all in blue, is only part which is in black. But I also submitted to you what petitioners provided me is an actual survey of the portion of the Pritz parcel that is being rezoned or is requested to be rezoned. And in addition to that, an accurate legal survey or legal description of the property, which is the next page. That's unfortunately my long way of saying that we don't have a good picture, but we do have an excellent and very accurate survey of the property that is requested to be rezoned. And that is why I suggested that any motion to consider this include a reference to that legal description accurately contained as Exhibit B. Next. A. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Exhibit A. In addition, I have asked for and obtained from the petitioner a limited power of attorney granting attorney Bradley J. Adamski the power to act in regard to this petition by Jane Heyer. She's a member representative of Heyer Wisniewski Indiana Farm LLC, one of the petitioners. A second power of attorney granting attorney Bradley J. Adamski power to act in regard to the petition by Jane Wisniewski, the principal of Heyer Wisniewski Indiana Farms LLC, the same petitioner. A limited power of attorney of Turnus M. Bradford, submitted both individually and as trustee of the Bradley J. of his trust, granting Mr. Adamski power to act in regards to this petition. And he submitted that on behalf of himself personally and the trust. He's the second petitioner. And a confidential document whereby the Pritz Family LLC agrees to the rezoning of this property. I also have a consent to annexation signed by Mr. Pritz as president of Pritz Family LLC. This has satisfied me, at least, and I am recommending to you that you accept it as ample evidence that the owners of the property have all consented to any action taken by this body to consider the rezoning. I'm sorry for that. I want all of those materials to be made part of the record, and I am so doing that right now. And so now part of the record are all those documents that I just mentioned. You have copies of the first group, the powers of attorney and the confidential document and consent I'm submitting to Mr. York.
Thank you, Attorney Hale. Mr. Adamski, on behalf of the petitioner, do you have any comment or follow-up with that? Or do you concur to the legal description?
No, that was a very good explanation of the legal description and just further insight into that. The property that we're requesting to be rezoned is the property that's actually being acquired by the developer. So there is part of the Pritz property not being acquired. That will remain as it's currently zoned. It's not part of this rezoning petition. That's to the south. That's the property that actually is adjacent to Paz Road. Now, when we mailed out notices, we considered that being common ownership. So we did adjacent properties to that. So there may be some petitioner or some remonstrators here from the public who received notice, even though the property across Paz Road from them will not be rezoned. So.
May I add to that, Mr. Granquist?
Yes. Yes, Mr.
I
Hale.
neglected in my report to indicate that Mr. Adamski very kindly submitted early for my review all of the notification documents. I've had an opportunity to review all of those, and they're voluminous, as you might imagine, and find them to be in satisfactory condition. They satisfy the requirements of notice that we have for this matter, and you're free to consider it. And I would add also that Mr. Adamski did go the extra mile to encircle all of the property, including that portion of the Pritz property that's not being a part of the rezoning.
And more than required. Okay. With that, we'll open it up to public comment. And if anybody has a comment after public comment, we'll have commissioner questions and follow up for that. So anybody speaking, state your name and address, please. Mr. Mayor.
Dwayne Perry, 2206 Maple Street, Mayor, Michigan City. I consider rezoning and development of this property critical, crucial to the economic revitalization of Michigan City. And as such, I would ask this body to unanimously support rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there any other comment from the public? State your name and address, please.
I'm Dale Harding. I live at 4974 North Johnson Road. I'm basically one house away from Paz at the intersection. Basically what I'd like to know, I have some questions that never got answered at the last meeting for annexation. My questions are basically about the drainage. As far as how will this affect the water table? How will it affect noise in the area? Because now we're talking about trucks that have the potential of going in and out of the property day and night. And the only way that businesses like this keep going is they have to have those trucks going in and out. Now, I have a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit sign in front of my house. People are usually doing 60 by the time they hit that. I can't keep my front windows open because of the noise from that traffic. Now we're going to add more. Will there be some sort of a buffer for this? I mean, and how far does this, how deep does this go from 20? Does this go to the apartment complex or what are we talking? Because I honestly, I mean, I have a dry basement. You know, this water has to go somewhere. This is all going to be paved. It's not going to just soak it up. We had a problem with the high school when they did that, you know, wonderful new job down at the high school with the dip and everything. It rained so hard that pond was actually pushing water out of the drains rather than soaking it in. So, you know, there are issues as far as engineering that also need to be addressed in this. And not having any idea what this business actually is, I can't see, you know, some sort of a model that already exists as comparison. So until I see something like that, I'm not in approval.
Thank you for your comment. This is the Plan Commission. We're reviewing the petition for rezoning and not development of the project right now. So we don't have all those answers either. That'll come down for follow-up hearing. Mr. York, do you have some further comment?
Yeah, I'll just add that there is a buffering requirement between the uses. It's a buffer and a berm, a planted berm, buffer, basically a berm. And if you think about a berm, it's 8. I think it's an 8-foot berm. So that's a big berm at the bottom. 8 foot tall. It's a big berm, but it also is a 50-foot setback in there as well between those uses, and it's required to be planted. It'll have like the appearance of trees and things of that nature on top of it. It has to be planted. As far as like the development things, those are things we address later on. Like they'll go through development review process, and that's where we address drainage. The sanitary district addresses drainage. Okay, how does it drain? How much water how big is your pond that you're going to have to put there? How big is that? How deep is it? How much can it hold? They address that at the development stage of things when it comes through development review. Those are more zoning things, if you will.
Well, speaking of pond, that also brings up, like mosquito issues. Now, those are things that need to be controlled. There is no problem currently. I've already experienced where the state of Indiana at my former residence did a retaining pond and off of the Kankakee River. And at that point, from that point on, it was nothing but mosquitoes. I couldn't drive into my driveway without my car being coated in mosquitoes. So as far as standing water goes, I have issues with that because I'd like to be able to continue being out in my yard. It takes me an hour to mow my lawn, and I'd like to be able to do that without being, soaked in deep woods off and covered in mosquitoes.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Someone else wish to speak? Please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Dawn D. Bancy. I am a resident at 5271 North Johnson Road, Michigan City. I've been a resident there for 18 years, and based on the water study that they had to submit to IDEM, we will be right across from that retention pond that he was referring to. My concern right now is I'm remonstrating against the proposal zoning change to any industrial level, which is currently asked at M1 for the following reasons. Number one is Route 20. Route 20, you said, is a industrial, heavy load, whatever traffic road. However, it is a death trap. I pulled up in a 5-minute search since 2016 to 2021, 7 major accidents in this area that caused fatalities. Ourselves, we were there in August 2017, and we're in a car accident right across from that on 20, right across from where this is going to be, for 5 years of financial and health devastation from that accident. And after it was reconstructed in June of 2021, another person died. This road cannot tolerate an industrial organization with the amount of traffic that you have planned for this zoning. The other thing is that land was originally designated as only being able to tolerate single family homes. We brought this to the attention to the county council. We've brought it to your all attention for many, many years now, and it continues to get moved to a higher level of zoning that has less and less land and more parking lots and roofing. It is not capable of holding on to that. The Army Corps of Engineers disagrees with this type of zoning. The zoning having light industrial, there is nothing that is protecting us from the light pollution that has already been put in with the M1 that was put in just off of 20, a little further away. We have a white sky over our house every night from that industry. Property values, you guys suggest that property values will be going up. Could you possibly suggest that if you stand in my front yard and look at an industrial park, that our property value will be increasing? No, it will not. There is no way that zoning will benefit our property. Taxes, when you guys decide what is going to actually be in there, like it's not already known, what taxes will be covering all the damage that happens to the roads and the waterways and such when they get tax credits from this industrial zoning process. It's supposed to be single-family homes. It's currently zoned wrong, but this makes it even worse. I also saw in your bylaws that you're supposed to have objectives for future development, planned, comprehensive studies. What's the traffic study you guys have used? What is the study that you've decided that my house will not have value lowering? And it actually says something about making sure there aren't unsightly things in our plan. I cannot suggest that across my house, standing in front of my house, an 8-foot berm with some bushes is going to be okay for me to stand out in front of my yard and say, that is not unsightly. This zoning request is inappropriate for the land that it's sitting on. It could be someplace else in a more appropriate place where they can still have access to whatever they need, but not destroy what are small businesses. Not this. That designation that they have for the IDEM crosses from US 20 all the way touching Paz Road. It is a large organization that's coming there. It will cover in land, no more grass, no more waterways. This is not appropriate. This zoning is not appropriate. And I'm not going to be distracted by, I should have been talking about something about what's going in. It is not meant for industrial. This is inappropriate. And I wish for you all to say no. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Please state your name and address.
That was my wife. Okay. Tom Bancy, 5271 North Johnson Road. And I remonstrate against this proposed zoning of Exhibit A to M1 from what it is right now. For a lot of reasons. I don't believe that it's going to do our property value one bit of good. I'm 65 years old and excuse me. I bought my property for cash back in 2003 and I built in 2004. I've put hundreds of thousands of dollars into it. It's pristine back there. It's beautiful. Trail Creek goes right through the property. I'm afraid of I'm truly afraid of the environmental impacts. I am truly concerned about property values. I'm truly concerned over traffic. Johnson Road turns into an expressway every day. 60 miles an hour in the morning is a low number. We can hardly get out of our driveways as it is now. And it's very dangerous even just trying to turn in. You've got school bus stops along Johnson Road and Paz. Route 20 is also, I'm sure you guys have seen when there are accidents out on 94, Route 20 becomes a second 94. Okay, all the traffic gets off at 35 or gets off 421 and everybody comes right down Route 20. That place sometimes is just absolutely packed. And now you're going to increase all the traffic going back and forth along 20. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous. So we've got environmental concerns. We've got pollution. We've got light issues. From my side yard at the M1 that is between 20 and the boulevard where GAF is. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that at night, but it lights the sky up like it's daytime. And I can't see a star. It's horrible. So I rail against this and I plead with you guys not to vote for this or to vote nay for it because it's not going to help any of the residential property. It's going to be environmental impacts. It's going to be traffic control. It's dangerous. I think those are good enough reasons for you guys to say nay. Okay, so appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Another speaker?
My name is Debbie Merrill. I live 4999 North Johnson Road. I border the Conservancy and the ravine where the water, where there was a sinkhole years ago. And with the new drainage pipes coming in, they're huge. And the water runoff from Paz increased so much that the first spring after those were put in place and built and the road was reconstructed, we had a lot of snow and then we had heavy spring rain. It came through like Niagara Falls and it totally eroded the bank beside my house. So they had an engineer come in and put in cages full of stone, but the way that the drainage pipes were placed, it's so high up that the water just ran right over it and it continued to undercut the banks. So if you would look at that, and now it's grown over a lot with weeds and roots and everything, but there's a lot of damage to that bank on the south side, actually close to my house from that drainage. And not only that, with the larger pipes and the water runoff from Paz, there is increased pollution. That water goes right down into Trail Creek. It has affected the creek down that goes through the Conservancy, that goes down to where 20 is, where there's a lot of fishing. We have a lot of people coming to Michigan City to fish. We're known for it. It's going to affect that. And not only that, also the light pollution. I'm concerned about that, not only for us, but for all the wildlife in the Conservancy. It affects their, it affects their knowledge of day and night. And we have a lot of deer. We have just everything, but I'm concerned about that. Is that going to be controlled? Obviously, how much of that is going to be blacktop and concrete? That land originally, way back when they put in the housing development across from the high school, which is another issue I have with warehousing being so close to the high school. Crime rate, I have read, does go up when light industrial goes close to a high school. I'm very concerned about that. The traffic at Paz and Johnson when school gets out is ridiculous. I can tell you that. And there are still accidents at that intersection of Paz and Johnson. What kind of light industrial is it? What kind of warehouse is it going to be? What's their traffic going to be? Because Johnson is used mainly from Michigan City to LaPorte. You increase traffic down there and it's not going to be good. And as the previous speaker said, yeah, people go down there and I mean, the speed that they get is frightening, and there's side streets there and they don't even consider that. I mean, it's a lot of accidents waiting to happen. I'm concerned about that. And I guess another thing that I was wondering was there are other places around Michigan City. Why would this have to be zoned for light warehouse? What about Cleveland? I know that was zoned for that. Why is there no development there? There's only one warehouse put up there, and I'm not seeing anything else after Meyer Boulevard going up that way. There's also properties that are south of Michigan City, across from, there's also property across from Walmart. I know that land is up for sale. Why not that? It's close to 94. I'm just wondering why so close to town and farmland and 20 with all the traffic. And then you've got tourists coming in from Chicago and other places, and they're going to have to travel 20. And in both directions, it's going to be really busy. I'm concerned about, more accidents, increased accidents, the time it would take for people to get to work or get from one side of town to another. The way that Michigan City is planned out, it's, there's really no direct way to get, and 20 is very commonly used. And So I have a lot of concerns, and I pray that you guys vote against this because there's so many reasons to not put light warehousing, whatever that means. I don't know. Does that mean a lot of semi-traffic? What are the hours going to be? Is it going to be 24/7? Is it going to be constant? Air pollution. I have asthma. This could greatly affect my health. So like I said, I pray that you guys vote against this and that it doesn't go through. There's a lot of aspects that you have to consider and that I hope that you consider. There's the environmental, there's health, there's crime, there's traffic, all those things. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there another speaker?
Good evening. Thank you for listening tonight. Pat Boy, State Representative, Michigan City, District 9, 218 Southwood Drive, Michigan City. I have more questions than I do have negative comments or positive comments. I only had a quick view of the map. Are all the outlets going to be on 20, or are there going to be any on Johnson Road or Paz Road?
Are you talking about direct access drives?
Direct access to roads.
My understanding is only 20.
Okay.
I would defer to the people presenting though.
Okay. Maybe they can answer that when they talk again. There is an isolated wetland on part of that property, and I wondered if that's part of the rezoned property, or if the rezoning request, or if that was in between that and the apartment complex. I don't know where that is. I would hope that it would be protected.
I'll defer to the owners or the potential.
Is the plan to have retention or detention ponds around the property? If they're retention, are they going to recirculate? If they're detention, are they going to be shallow enough that the water will
So that's something we don't deal
not be
with.
standing water? But these are things that I think
That's
you
something
need
we
to
do.
look at.
That's something we deal with at the development stage.
Right, but in the development stage, these will apply if it's rezoned. What's going to happen in the southeast corner? The drawing was on an angle, and there's a big empty space at the bottom. Is that planned for development as well, or is that just left undeveloped at the moment?
In the petition
I know.
before us, it's only the legal description that's being requested for rezoning.
Right.
So other parcels
Okay.
are not before us tonight.
Okay. I was going to ask about the buffer setback. The buffer setback of 100 feet for buildings, parking, and storage areas from any residential district. And the buffer setback shall be landscaped with buffer zone A, which is if it's outside if it's in the unincorporated areas, it's a 1 canopy tree, 3 evergreen trees, and 4 shrubs every 40 feet. But if it's in the buffer zone located in the city, it's 1 canopy tree and 3 evergreen trees. But since it abuts the unincorporated, if there could be 4 shrubs included. Those are just some questions. If the berm is applied as it's supposed to be, will there be any kind of sound barriers? And if they have lighting on their parking lots, if they're a 24-hour business, I don't know yet, if they would be able to shield the lights so they only reflect on the parking lot and not up into the air.
I can answer that one right now. We do have a lighting standard, like fruit candles. Typically what we like to see is just their drives lit, where you can see to turn in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's supposed to shield down. Obviously there are residual lights. You go to Walmart or any place like that, it's going to be light coming up. But the way that we do light now, they have to submit a foot candle plan that shows the measurements, the intensity of those lights in certain areas. Typically that light is going to be focused mainly on your drives though, just so you don't miss that drive or whatever.
Okay.
And then as far as like barriers and sound barriers, that's why I was suggesting a berm rather than a wall. There's a wall option.
Yeah, the berm is 4 feet. And the wall is-
Walls are horrible at sound burying because they reflect sound rather than absorbing it. So, I mean, I think we would ask them to maybe do more natural plantings or natural berm rather than a wall, because it's like your backyard. It reflects sound off your fence, and trees work much better.
And when it gets to the point where they want to put in a business there, if there's going to be semis, if there's a way to allow them to shut off their trucks so they don't continue to pollute the air while they're there for deliveries or pickups.
I'll have to defer to them on that.
Those are things that I would like to see someone look at when they do the plan, if this is approved tonight. But those are all valid concerns for the neighbors, and I appreciate you listening tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Boyd. Thank you for your comments. Is there another speaker?
I originally had passed a written remonstrance on to Skylar, but I'm going to ask for withdraw that and speak. I think I speak more relatively, if you will. Okay. Dwayne Cobos, the lot that I'm talking about is a lot that's adjacent and north of you, 5350 North Johnson Road. Concerns, of course, are that the total stated acreage is relatively large, hundreds of acres. And some of these tracts are functionally adjacent to the over 270, maybe 300 multifamily housing units in the acreage's southwest corner. And that's certainly going to have a quality of life issue for those people there. This tract's off, of course, being functionally adjacent to people who live across Paz Road, those who live across Johnson Road as well. Of course, some people has also mentioned the relatively nearness of the Michigan City High School and some of the issues it would have. This is the first time that I've been involved in this meeting and understanding it, so I don't understand everything at this point here. But the Michigan City Code of Ordinances, Appendix C, joint zoning ordinances, use tables, has a lot of different things you can put in M1. Obviously, it has, of course, warehouses and mail order businesses and that sort of thing. But if you read down the table, being some ambiguities of what's going to be there, you could have things things that are allowed by right. Things could even be adult cabarets and adult retail stores type of things, and things that aren't required by, for special exemption approvals. Everything from manufacturing explosives to sewage treatment plants to correctional facilities, if you have the things. So I think some of the ambiguities here are what's driving most of the people to go, what? And maybe a little bit more ambiguity that was eliminated. And if this could be continued and looked at a second time, I think it would make a lot of people feel better. Again, coming late to the party, so I don't have all of the information here, but I think that might be prudent at this point here. Just a suggestion to you. And I'm sure that, the AMS 2020 BTS Michigan City is going to be a economic boon for the city, but let's perhaps consider a little bit more definitions. Typically, I realize those don't happen at the rezoning part, but once the train leaves the station, it's hard to recall those sometimes. So I appreciate your time, appreciate all the information. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Is there another speaker? Please state your name and address.
I'm Crystal Jones, and I live at 7652 West Paz Road. So I'm on the corner of Paz and Johnson. I have a 3.5-year-old daughter, and I'm very concerned about safety. Almost every day, no matter if I enter from Paz or from Johnson, I almost get rear-ended almost every day. And I have my daughter in the car with me. So I'm very concerned about adding traffic to that area and how we're going to keep our families safe. Also, every winter or every heavy rainstorm, like every year, I get at least one car in my yard. They slide off of Johnson or Paz, I wake up and I find them there, or the cops are there. Also across the road, where the farm is. And I'm very nervous because on my corner are two poles, and by the grace of God, they've been missed every time. I can't see with this added traffic how that would continue. You know, and I'm concerned for other people's safety. You know, as some of the other people have said, that they speed a ridiculous amount already. You know, and with this added traffic, I'm very nervous. And then at high school, you know, time when everyone's released, to get inside my house or to leave my house is kind of a joke. You know, I have to basically just wait very patiently for somebody to let me out. I'm concerned about that. And I would ask for a continuance just so you guys can kind of think about the concerns that everyone's listed. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there another speaker? And please state your name and address.
My name is Dan Cruiser. I'm also at 7652 West Paz Road. With the current zoning or the recommended zoning, is there anything preventing entrance and exit to the facility that may exist in the newly zoned area from Paz Road? I understand that's not the current plan, but is that possible that could happen if the zoning moves forward?
Not with the nature of like the trucks that are coming in because they would destroy that road. That's the whole thing is like coming off of 20 because of the trucks. I don't think we would. I guess I can't prevent a semi from coming down Paz Road, but I don't think it's conducive to come down Paz Road. But we can look at things like that. There is consideration for that. We don't have to grant curb cuts, et cetera. Absolutely. We look at things like that when we grant curb cuts.
Okay.
We want to see, is it conducive to holding that truck? And there might be, if we did say wanted to do something to Paz, it would take an improvement to Paz, meaning a widening or a rebuilding of that road. And typically that basically stops the discussion pretty much because.
Yeah, so I guess as a follow-up question, I was only made aware of this by the letters that went out recently, so I gather there's maybe been some conversation about this previously. It seems Ambrose Group is maybe, seems like some of their current projects are Amazon warehouses. I understand that may not be the case here. It's light industrial, and maybe Ambrose is building the building to lease out to whoever they please. But it seems like the size of the parcel of land that's available, even if it wasn't Amazon specifically, would probably attract businesses of a similar magnitude as far as traffic goes. So I'm not even so much concerned that semi-traffic on Paz Road may be the issue. It could just be if there was an entrance there, employees exiting and entering, normal size delivery trucks that are similar to what a UPS or Amazon or somebody uses now. And once again, a facility that size, if it was Amazon, they tend to employ about 1,000 people, which would be great for the city. But I think moving that many people in and out of an area that small, even if it wasn't Amazon, anybody that might be employed at a facility that large or that could exist on a plot line. So I guess are there any permanent or even proposed plans to help with the traffic? Because I agree the traffic is very heavy in the area already.
So during development stages, we do take in consideration the traffic. Like we'll look at Paz during kind of the development stage when they're actually getting down to working with the city engineer or engineers on their end as well. They work with our city engineers. They'll probably have to work with the state too. They're probably something the state's going to have to do with 20 as well, and probably the intersection. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm just saying that that's something they'll have to look at. But with regard to Paz in general and Johnson, we are at it's the city's discretion to grant that curb cut. We don't have to grant that curb cut if we think it's going to cause more if they're going to dump employees out onto where schools getting out, employees are dumping out as well. Obviously that would be a bad situation. So we look at those during the development stage of things.
There is currently a small, and I didn't plan on this coming up. There is a small turnoff built on Paz right now into what I'm assuming is the same farmland. Is that related to this whatsoever?
I think it's just a leftover, probably something that I don't even know what it is. I know what you're talking about though.
Okay.
It's not related to this project though.
Sure. And this is a similar, I guess, sentiment that the gentleman earlier referred to, but I understand this is rezoning. This is not specific to the projects that may come forward. But it does seem, you could assume that a plot of, what is the total acreage? Was it 140? Give or take. Thank you. I mean, I would appreciate it if you could consider not zoning this, if only because you could only build at a large building on a plot of land that, you wouldn't need that much land if you're trying to build something much smaller. So regardless of what ends up there, it will surely generate a lot of traffic, and the light pollution, everything is a concern of mine too. So I think those are my only thoughts.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Is there another speaker?
Am
Do we
I
have someone online?
virtually? Can
Please
you hear?
state your name and address. We can hear you.
Great. My name is Betsy Mayer. I'm with Save the Dunes. We own the property that's on the other side of Johnson, on the east side of the road where Paws meets Johnson. And I just wanted to bring up Trail Creek Fen, which is a special kind of wetland on the other side of the street and plays an important role in maintaining the biodiversity of our area. There are 200 plant species in that area and some rare animals, including the yellow spotted turtle. There are other species as well. I won't go through all of them. And fens, if you don't know about wetlands, play an important role in treating the water. And so if this property is rezoned right now, there is a lot of grass that can help to absorb the water. And I anticipate there would be more polluted water flowing into the fen. So it's not to say it can't get rezoned, but I think there's a really important conversation that needs to happen around green development and green industry. If you develop it in a way that can help still control the water on that side of the road, it can be done. But if it is all developed and paved and buildings done, this is a pretty rare ecosystem that once it's affected, it's very hard for it to come back. So I just wanted to raise those concerns and bring those comments forward.
Thank you for your comments. Is there another speaker in person or online? No, please come forward and state your name and address.
Sorry. I just want you to, could you elaborate on the berms, the height and where they're proposed to be placed? Is it going to be on 3 sides except for 20? Where are they? And
So the
trees and
berms have to go
bushes?
between certain uses. And I mean, I know Representative Boyd mentioned that we're not required to do it if they're not in the county. But I mean, I've done them before where I didn't consider the county. It makes sense to do it to buffer all of it. That's just kind of my take on it. Is you still got residences on the other side of the road. Be them in the county, still should have a berm. We did that with an industrial building just a couple years ago. The berms go in the buff. So there's also a buffering area. So there's an area that can't be used, if you will, developed, if you will. And then there's a berm that has to go in that. And then that's where all your plantings and shrubs and things like that go inside that area.
Will there be trees?
Yes. Yeah, there's requirements for trees, shrubs. If there's parking lots, they have to be shrubbed. I mean, it's a pretty heavy landscape requirements for those things. It's to keep, the shrubs have to be of a certain height so that lights don't shine out. There's a lot of landscaping requirements to especially something like this. The berm is going to be used to basically buffer in between residential uses, any use that's not, that it requires it to be between. But yes, there is canopy trees. I would encourage more trees for deadening of sound. Trees work way better than anything you can put out there. They just absorb sound so good.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, and Betsy brought up a really good point about the fen. I have a fen in my backyard that goes down to Trail Creek, and that water, the pollution, the garbage that comes through that drainage pipe, the fen goes right from my property over into Conservancy. And there are some pretty rare things back there. I can tell you that for sure. I would hate to see that affected. And also, you were mentioning about the letters. I know some people who live on Paz Road, who live right by the high school, and they didn't receive any letters. And I also have a neighbor who didn't receive letters. Who received letters? Who was supposed to? Just the people who were bordering the immediate? Because one of the people I'm talking about does, and she didn't receive anything. Just curious.
Well, all notices have been reviewed by staff and the attorney there.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Granquist, may I ask Mr. York a question?
Please.
Mr. York, is it accurate to say that your comments regarding berms and landscaping and so forth are all based on the requirements in our zoning ordinance? There's no proposal that's been submitted by anyone that you're speaking of.
No.
So by law, by our zoning ordinance, these are the requirements you're speaking of.
Yes, those have to be reviewed. They're not going to put together something those are robust plans. They require a lot of engineering work, a lot of detail to species, things of that nature, getting the right shrubs, there's a lot involved in that. Until the rezoning, I mean, they're not going to submit something like that to me right now. That comes at a later point when we start going through the actual development phase and development review phase of things. That's when I get involved in reviewing those and making sure they meet our zoning, the actual zoning code that's going to be applied to this later, or if it gets approved.
Thank you, Attorney Hale. Is there any other speaker in person or online? You state your name and address again, please.
Dale Harding, 4974 North Johnson Road. One of the questions, one issue that I really do have, because I do work with varying delivery trucks and whatnot, and oftentimes some may be carrying hazardous materials of some sort. What kind of, limitations would there be with this zoning for what kind of hazardous materials could show up? Because if there's some sort of a spill or something, this could pollute wells. We all have wells in the neighborhood. I don't want city water. I don't want a monthly city water bill. I don't want city sewer. I'm content with the system that I have, but especially the fact that, there's a lot of possibility for human illness could come, if the wells are polluted. These are issues that I'm really concerned about.
Thank you for your comment. Mr. York, you want to address briefly environmental hazard issue?
So each use requires each use has a requirement. So every time, if this was to say change to a different use later on, we review that use. They have to register with the city. We do a zoning review of it. If they are hauling something hazardous, it might require a pool or not a pool. They have to build walls around certain things that could potentially spill out, that has to hold whatever the quantity of that is. There are different rules that are applied to literally every every use. And those are typically reviewed by during the development stage, but every new business that comes in, they have to register before we turn their water back on. So they have to register with us, and then we do that zoning review at that point in time.
Okay. And like I was, more or less one of the issues that I'm trying to get through is some trucks carry multiple loads. Like they may be delivering a partial load that has other items on it. And this is kind of what I'm getting at. It may not be the load that they're receiving, but if they're also carrying something that's more hazardous, now that's also a concern, because for as long as it's in the vicinity, there is the potential that, there could be some sort of leakage or whatever, or there may be like some sort of a containment issue. And this is kind of what I'm getting at. I mean, don't get me wrong. Any truck driving up and down the highway, down 20, could be a potential for that. But we're talking about them stopping and spending more time, which leaves the opportunity, if they were having a problem, that, something could become it could be a problem. So this is the only thing I'm kind of like concerned with.
Thank you for your comments. Is there another speaker in person or online?
I'm online. My name is Catherine Sanders. I own the property on the east side of Johnson Road, basically where Paz Road joins Johnson Road. So it's adjacent to the Trail Creek Fen. The Trail Creek Fen was donated by my family to be protected many years ago. And I would just like to echo that it is environmentally a very important type of wetland. I understand the need for development. That area is already highly developed. So I have a question first before further comment about the zoning, the buffers that would be planted. We've been talking about trees and shrubs and those types of things. Is that a rule that those plantings would be native trees and shrubs?
There's a list of what's required. We don't let non-natives, trees, things of that nature put in there. Yes.
Okay, so
those are reviewed by typically reviewed at development stage. We review like what they are.
Okay. That's a concern that anything, that is considered an invasive species, whether it's currently listed on the terrestrial plant rule or not, would be a detriment to that important wetland. And then the other thing is just the hydrology of that wetland. It's so important to consider the infiltration and pervious surfaces to let water infiltrate into the ground rather than rushing off and across into the fen. I know that a lot of people have concerns about light pollution and there are a lot of environmental concerns in this area. So I would just like to echo some of the other comments this evening that it's going to be really important to consider some lengthy measures to ensure the quality of the adjacent environment. Trail Creek Fen runs right through there. I don't think I need to remind anyone in this area, where state records of steelhead are caught. And so, this development really could impact that wetland. And I appreciate the opportunity to address the council this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there another speaker in person or online? Is there another speaker in person or online to speak? One more call. Is there another person in person, speaker in person or online? Then we'll close the public comment period. And Mr. Adamski, on behalf of the petitioner, you've heard many of the comments here, and specifically regarding Pass Road and Johnson Road. And for, if you can clarify for the commissioners up here, the legal description comparing the large 100-acre parcel drawn out versus the parcel that's before the commission tonight for rezoning.
Sure. And what I would first point out, what was echoed even by a couple of the comments from the remonstrators, and of course their concerns are well taken, and those are factors that will come into play as this goes along one way or the other. But again, I would point out this is a petition for rezoning tonight. A lot of the concerns that are being brought up will be addressed or would be addressed at the developmental review stage, whether this property remained B2 or whether it was rezoned to M1. Those requirements are going to be there before the city, in some cases before state agencies. That's not really on your purview tonight, or not really. I mean, yes, they're concerns and they're good that they're being addressed and raised, because they're brought not to just the city's attention, but to our client's attention, so that those can be addressed as anything moves forward. But again, that's not what this petition tonight is specifically addressing. So, I mean, that being said, I will acknowledge one thing in particular is the traffic on Johnson Road, or the speed on Johnson Road. I live on Johnson Road myself, quite a bit further south. I live in a school zone, and I can tell you nobody goes 20 miles an hour through that school zone, whether it's school time or after. So you're the one, you and me, you're the one that lets me back out then probably. So, but no, that's an issue that's already there. That's an issue that's there regardless of the petition tonight, regardless of whether the property is B2 or M1. So as far as clarifying the legal description of the property, the map that was submitted with the highlighted yellow on that survey, that is the best representation of what those legal descriptions are. Okay. Basically what's happening with the Pritz parcel is it is being split right around where the drainage ditch cuts through it. So that's the diagonal that cuts through. So as you look at this page, this is the highlighted portion. This part down here was annexed into the city, but it's not part of the rezoning petition. That would be the southwest corner. And again, that's the property across from Paz Road. One concern was brought up regarding mailing notices. I will say that our office took care of those mailing notices, as well as the publication in the newspaper. Mailing goes to any adjacent property owner, and those are pulled from the county's website. Anybody that's adjacent to part of the property that was being rezoned. We went beyond that because we even included property that was commonly owned by one of our property owners, but not being rezoned. Certified mailings went out. There are some that didn't get returned yet. So it's certainly possible that that's, if somebody didn't receive a mailing, they were mailed it. Whether they claimed it or received it yet, we don't have control over that. We just follow the standards of when the mailing has to go out and make sure that we do that timely, which we did. And then even though the details aren't even before the board yet, we understand what the concerns brought up by the public. I don't know if, Eric, if you want to address some of those. I know you can talk about some of it, just even though, again, it's beyond what we're really presenting tonight. Maybe you can just give some comfort, not just to the public, but maybe to the board members as well.
If you'd like to take just a couple minutes and not prolong everything, but just describe a few things that you have in mind.
Eric Blount, Ambrose Property Group, 8888 Keystone Crossing, Indianapolis. So yes, I was, as I think some folks saw, I was taking notes as each speaker was there. So obviously there was a lot of overlap, but all great questions. Just kind of starting at the top and some of the main ones, as I think with regard to traffic, as Mr. York said, all of our outlets at this time are currently planned to empty out and open up to US 20. There is no curb cuts scheduled at this time, and nor do I expect to see any with regard to Paz Road or Johnson Road. Hazardous materials, there was a question about that as well. Again, this user does not handle hazardous materials, nor do their trucks. So again, I can address that issue. Noise, with regard to noise, again, we do sound studies. We're obligated to do that for our end user. Obviously, we address those through, as Mr. York alluded to, through buffers, landscaping. And again, we do those studies because, again, our client wants to be a good neighbor. We don't want to be someone that comes in and is obtrusive. We want to be considerate of others, particularly our neighbors. Just quickly going down through my notes here through each speaker. There was a question about incentives. Currently, the end user here is not pursuing any incentives as part of this project. Let's see. There was our stormwater is all going to be contained on site through detention ponds at this time. That's what we're anticipating. Many of these details are still in development. So as Mr. York alluded to, again, we are bound by the ordinances of the city. So once those plans are submitted, again, all those comments will be addressed. Sanitary district, et cetera, all their input will have to be incorporated into our plans, and we understand that. I know one speaker mentioned wetlands that were on the site. There is a portion of our wetlands that are on the site. And yes, we are engaged with Army Corps of Engineers, Chicago District. Those discussions are ongoing. So we are working with them diligently. We also have environmental consultants that are looking at any environmental issues, the Blandings turtle, the brown bat, those types of impacts to the environment to make sure that we address all those as well. We also, with regard to traffic, we are engaged with NDOT at this time on US 20. We're obviously, we have to adhere to all of their mandates as well. So again, we are addressing all of those through their commentary. There was a question as well with regard to the empty space at the southeast corner, which would be the intersection of Johnson Road and Paz Road. There's currently no plans for development at that corner currently. I think I'm quickly kind of going down through my notes, but I think by and large that addressed most of the broad questions from the speakers, but thank you.
Thank you for a brief explanation on that, Mr. Okay. And we'll open it up to the commissioners for questions and comments. And Mr. Hale, I would first address to you clarification of this legal description submitted versus the yellow highlighted, because this one seems to be just a portion of this. Can you clarify for that for the commission again?
Yes, the Schneider survey that you pointed to actually the other one, sorry, they're both by Schneider. That one, that is a survey of the Pritz parcel. So it's the western end of the entire parcel that's there. And so where you see the line drawn, it was described as a ditch of some sort at an angle. That's roughly the location of the angle that appears on the survey that you just showed. So that is the top of that, or the northern half, is what is to be rezoned, along with everything to the right of it, which is composed of 3 other parcels there where you're showing. That is all parcel that's shown on Exhibit A to the petition.
Open up for commissioners. Have any questions or comments?
I do, if I could, and indulge me, because you know me, I have a list of questions here. So the first one, going back to the notifications, just for a technical kind of my own knowledge and the group here. Were these notifications done under the new standard or old standard?
These were done under the old standard. Great question. I should have probably prefaced that. They were done under the old standard. This petition was turned in prior to us setting those new standards.
So this was just for the clarification of the group then, every property that touches any piece of this development, and I think Mr. Adamski even said, even the part that's being left the same, there was notifications to those all, so that everyone touching any of these three, plus that little section that's not being touched, received a notification. And Mr. Hale obviously verified that those went out properly. Excellent. The other technical question I had is, I know we've talked in the past about island properties without access, and I'm curious because we're dividing one parcel into two zonings. Or are we creating a new parcel here? That's the parcel being left behind here, this guy right here. Is that going to be two zonings on the same plot, or is that going to be two different?
It will. So the next step in this progress is a subdivision, and the legal description that you have right now is your subdivision. So that piece will be a residual leftover piece you're referring to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm not speaking into the mic. The piece that's left over, that will be a leftover parcel, still annexed into the city, but it will remain property of, they're not buying that parcel, essentially. They will be subdividing that. Brad, if I'm speaking out of turn, please correct my, because you're with the purchasers.
Right. And I'll jump in really quick on that too, because the word subdivision can be frightening to people. But what we're talking about here is an administrative subdivision of basically moving the property line, because conveniently the Pritz family also owns the property or the parcel to the south of that. So what we're doing is we're going to remove that property line and move the one further up to where we're splitting it.
So you're going to join it to the bottom.
We're going to start with two parcels and end with two parcels.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just concerned. I know we've had issues in the past about access to island parcels, without touching roads and that kind of thing. And I just wanted to make sure that's not where we were going.
And we're not trying to create a parcel with split zoning on it.
Okay.
Yes, we've had issues in the past, and I don't like to suggest to you guys for any type of subdivisions of that sort, because it ends up not being good in the future. So.
Okay. And I think, so traffic, we've definitely got a lot of questions on that. Do we have, obviously, I think part of Paz Road falls under Michigan City's jurisdiction, and I know this section of Johnson doesn't currently. Are there load limits that would prevent heavy truck traffic in general? I know obviously that's not in your purview exactly, but
I would say yes. In general, there are, because roads are constructed to, there's certain thicknesses of asphalt, certain thicknesses of aggregate underneath it. I would highly suspect that Paz may be of a lower standard road.
It feels like it.
Yeah. Agreed. So I would highly suggest or highly suspect that it is. And you are correct. The way that the road works is the piece that's still in the county, it splits. Basically, the road splits in the middle at the crest. Half's in the county, half's in the city now. We have to work collectively with the county, even with repaving. Like, we can repave our half if they repave their half. You know what I mean? Just like one of those things. There are ways to designate, no heavy trucks. We've done that with some other roads to keep kind of trucks in their lane, if you will. Mm-hmm. So we've done that before. That's something that's not under my purview. It's underneath the purview of the Board of Works at that point in time.
Understood.
And then it would probably be under the purview of, again, the county at that point in time to designate, no heavy haul, no heavy trucks, buses only type thing for the school, things of that nature.
Understood. So Essentially, where you would touch that process, though, is in the planning process, where if they came to you with a plan that said, oh, we want to put a curb cut on Paz Road, for example, obviously that's not the plan being said, but you could come back and say, hey, Paz Road can't handle this, so no, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Did we get any comments from fire, sewer, or anything like that?
Thank you for asking that. And I apologize for not reading those earlier.
No, that's okay.
This is from the water department. The department has no issues with the rezoning request. Sanitation. The Michigan City Sanitary District takes no exception to the amended petition P 100-22 for rezoning. Fire department said that they have no issues. Now, I'll preface this with keep in mind they haven't. When we go through development review, these three entities are at that table at that time, and they address any issues that they would see at that time with the developer. Absolutely. Yep. So fire might come back and say, hey, I need bigger radiuses. How are you sprinkling your building? Where your ingress egress? They're going to review all that. And then likewise, sanitation, it's not just your sewer, it's also the runoff, the MS, your detention, retention. That's when they review all those processes.
And then that was kind of that leads to the next thing I was going to ask about, actually. There's been talk that they would be connected to city water and sewer. Would that be a part of the drainage plan in the planning stage, or does that come up now?
It comes up in the planning stage, and I believe they've already engaged with sanitary to start the preliminary discussion of where does the stormwater go, where's the new sewer go, where does water go across their property, essentially down 20.
Do we have connections on the south side of 20 since this is new?
Yep, there's a main that's been pushed under 20 in general near Evergreen Plaza, and that's the connection. Yeah.
I think, and then in this case, the sidewalk ordinance probably would not apply with an M1 designation. Is that correct?
So sidewalk ordinance is still in play. We're not at that stage yet. That's something we'd have to talk about, as they move through the development stage. Right now, we're just dealing with rezoning.
Sure.
But obviously there are some benefits to having sidewalks. There are benefits to actually, bus stops, things of that. And we haven't gotten that far along yet.
Understood. I didn't know if that came with the zoning or not. And then I think my final one would actually be a comment directed towards city planning in general. I would love to see that Paz Road corridor eventually become a more almost like Pine, where it has access for sidewalks, it has access for bikes. I know when, that Michigan City High School and these developments have been added out there over time, it would be nice if that became a walkable corridor for our kids. I know lots of adults from the housing developments there use that and have to walk back and forth. And that's kind of a dangerous situation on top of the current state of the road, everyone dodging potholes and then people walking along the side of the road. So that's not super germane to this tonight, but just as a citizen thought.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioner comments, questions?
Mr. President, I had one question and then a couple comments. So the question is, how soon after, if the rezoning were to pass, would the developmental process begin?
Eric Blount, again with Ambrose Property Group. So in terms of timing, obviously, this is the first step of many. We are in the process of still evaluating with our client timing on drawings and setting up reviews with regard to city development review with Skylar's team. So what we're anticipating right now is closing on the property this calendar year and beginning development shortly thereafter. So I would just tell you within this calendar year.
All right, thank you. And the comment, so I'll definitely be giving a brief report of this at our upcoming council meeting. So the rest of the council is brought up to speed with what's going on. And I do share some of the similar concerns, as this is the 4th Ward, which is the area of the city which I represent, and especially the concerns with Paz Road. I mean, when I first got on the council, that was one of the main things that I worked on, safety on Paz Road, getting the lighting there where there had never been lighting there. So the road being improved and sidewalks and stuff is something that's definitely important to me out there. And I don't think this will be too much of a burden on that the way it seems right now. But I do want to know, I don't want to know. I just think that the potential that we could have to, add to economic impact of the city by allowing this type of rezoning. I don't know what the use would be specifically, but the notion that there would be some type of, something that would be job creating. I think that's a good idea. And I definitely agree with what the proposals are and what, if this passes tonight, what we'll be looking at the city council level. So just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments or questions? Mr. York, do you have any other reports to share or any correspondence?
I have any correspondence. The one was read in, so I don't need to read it. No, if there's any other questions, I can answer any other questions you might have, but no.
And we're prepared for a vote. Mr. Hill?
Mr. Granquist, may I make a comment?
Please.
As you recall, and as you all know, whatever your decision is, and you have 3 choices, to forward this to the Common Council of Michigan City with a favorable recommendation, with an unfavorable recommendation, or with no recommendation. You are not approving this rezone. The job of approving a rezone is with the Michigan City Common Council. They are the ones that say yes or no. We are adding our recommendation to go forward to that council. I anticipate then that there might be 2 motions. The second motion would be regarding the certification. You have a copy of one in front of you, and the second one might be to adopt the certification as presented to you and to direct the staff to forward that to the Michigan City Common Council with the findings in the petition. But I think if the motion is to approve this and send it on with a favorable recommendation, you could adopt the findings as presented by the staff report, approve and support the petition P-100-22, and forward said findings and petition to the Michigan City Common Council with a favorable recommendation. If your decision is to send it on with an unfavorable recommendation, you should adopt some findings that is set forth your reasoning. It can be brief, and move to not support the petition P-100-22 and forward that and the petition to the Michigan City Council with an unfavorable recommendation. And finally, if you offer a motion with no recommendation, you can just indicate that you move to forward petition P-100-22 to the Michigan City Common Council with no recommendation. But the important part there is for a favorable and unfavorable, you should have your rationale, and adopting the findings as presented by Mr. York would be appropriate. I would also like the motion the first motion to specifically reference the property to be rezoned as described in petitioner's Exhibit A.
Thank you, Attorney Hale. Is there any question on that by the commissioners? Then we're prepared to receive a motion. Someone like to make a motion?
I would move for a favorable recommendation with the findings as laid out in the reports tonight by Mr. York and Mr. Hale. And also considering the powers granted to our planning office to make sure the considerations brought forth tonight by residents in the area will be addressed adequately. Also, the group from Ambrose here tonight hearing those will make the process a little easier on the back end. But I would move for a favorable recommendation on these changes as laid out in Exhibit A. And again, taking into account the findings in Mr. York and Mr. Hale's reports.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Mr. Granquist.
Aye.
Mr. Gresham.
Yes.
Mr. Klinder.
Yes.
Mr. Latchford.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you all. Thank
we
you
need a
for all of your
second
comments and information.
There's the one more.
Go ahead.
Yep. Sorry. I would also move to pass on the certification as submitted to the Common Council for their consideration.
Second.
There's a motion and a second.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Give me 1 second. Okay. Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Mr. Granquist.
Yes.
Mr. Gresham.
Yes.
Mr. Klinder.
Yes.
Mr. Latchford.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Adamski and petitioners. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you all for your comments. That will be well considered by the petitioner. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. New business is a plan commission appointment to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Mr. York.
Every year, you guys appoint a new person to be a representative to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Just looking for a new appointment or the same appointment or however you guys, whatever is you guys would like to do.
Current appointment is Mr. Klinder. Do you wish to continue or withdraw?
If Mr. Klinder would like to still serve, then I would move to approve Mr. Klinder's continued attendance with the BZA.
Second.
All right.
Motion and a second. Mr. York.
Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Mr. Granquist.
Yes.
Mr. Gresham.
Yes.
Mr. Klinder.
Thank you.
Mr. Latchford.
Yes.
Mr. Latchford.
Yes.
Okay, the next item of business is public comments in general. Does anyone have public comments in general? Or Mr. York?
There's one other item of business before we get to the public comments. It's been requested by the petitioner representing 901-22. That's the Marquette Mall that we heard earlier that asked for the continuance. They're requesting if we would consider having a special meeting on 14th. Give me 1 second. I'm going to read it real quick. I'm so sorry, guys. I had it in my head and it slipped out. June 14th. We would consider having that same time, June 14th. It's up for you guys to consider that.
I know, I have a conflict on that day at that time.
Okay. If you said it, what we could, if you so are inclined to say yes, we could poll and see if we have a quorum, we have a quorum. If we don't, it'll just have to go to the regular meeting.
There are several commissioners not present here as well that we could check for a special meeting. Could we just get an email out to confirm our schedules?
Absolutely. We could poll you guys like normal.
Do we have the ability to move it with less than 30 days notice?
That's the catch. They've got to renotice. So that's kind of it's the soonest we could probably get it in. Let's just say that it's either then or just wait till the regular scheduled meeting, which would be on the 28th, right? Yeah.
Are they requesting a workshop meeting or a public hearing type meeting?
Regular meeting.
Regular meeting.
Yep. Regular meeting. Yeah.
They requested that date. And that is the very earliest that it could be done. And it is pushing the envelope a little bit for everybody.
Absolutely. You're right. There are a lot of commissioners not here tonight. One just voiced that they couldn't be here. If you guys want to say, I guess if you approved it tonight and then we would just poll and see, but that would at least set the date and we would poll, and like any other meeting, if I get a quorum, we get a quorum. If we don't, we can't have the meeting. So I think that's.
Yeah, I don't see that there'd be a problem with us setting, allowing for June 14th to have the meeting if we can get the quorum, and that's always a contingency. So a special request is, I don't see the problem with that.
I'm sorry, Fred. If we couldn't get 5 people together, it would just automatically slide to the 26th, and there would again be no extra consideration for us to have to,
it's not gonna
and all that kind
it's not gonna cancel out the next meeting, our next regular meeting. It's just a kind of in between. It's a special.
Just like an extra one interim to kind of keep things moving forward.
That's correct.
So can we agree by consensus? Do we need a vote to approve it?
Rather than establish it as a firm date, why don't we have a consensus that the staff determines if a quorum could be present?
So subject to quorum and subject to proper notice.
Yes. Very good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would move then for a special meeting on June 14th at our normal time of 6 p.m. Central Time, if we can establish a quorum and proper notice by that time.
As the consensus of the commissioners.
Second.
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. We'll send out a poll and just see how many we get, and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
And we'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
That's it for me.
Okay. Now, next item, public comments in general. Any public comments in general, in person or online? Anybody still online? No. Oh, you have a comment?
Yeah,
Okay.
It doesn't sound like it's working. You want to come up front?
Yeah, can you?
Sorry about that.
I'm sorry I couldn't hear.
My name is Brian Gross. I live at 830 West 6th Street, Michigan City. I've spoken before the Common Council several times and other things. Back in November, I spoke before the Board of Public Works. I own a small industrial building in town. And in December of 2020, I applied for a building permit to do some repair work, which was issued in January 2021. Since then, I have not been able to get building permits issued because the city now says I have to be a licensed and registered contractor to get building permits to work on a building I own, and I'm doing all the work myself. And I've written letters. Again, I've talked to everybody. In November, I talked to the Board of Public Works. Afterwards, I talked with the mayor, and he said he'd set up a meeting with the relevant people because I find nothing in the city code that restricts me from getting a permit. About a month later into December, I called the mayor's office since I hadn't heard back, and he said he had passed it on to the Planning Commission. To date, I have not heard anything from the Planning Commission. Every time I stop in there, the Planning Commissioner's not available. I've left phone messages. I have heard nothing. And the same with the Building Commissioner. I've got a question. She rejected a permit. I've got a question on it. I've left her voice messages. I've sent emails. I've heard nothing back. And as a resident, as a taxpayer, as a freeholder, and as a citizen of Michigan City, I really expect more of the officials that work in this city. You know, I expect at least some sort of response, and I just have not gotten anything. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you for your comments and presentation. And Plan Commission doesn't have direct jurisdiction over that, but we appreciate your concerns there. And maybe some of us as citizens may try to help address that. Any other public comments in general? Okay, public comments are closed there. And next item are commissioner comments. Any comments from the commissioners?
Yeah, briefly, the petition we heard tonight was very impactful. I think all of what the people had to say were all warranted concerns. I think we owe it to the people of Michigan City to and all the people of Michigan City, the city itself, and our environment to make sure that we do what's right if we're going to improve this, we make sure that it's done correctly and it's done the way that it should be done according to the Planning Commission laws we have.
Any other comments from the commissioners?
Just really quick in response to Mr. Gross. I had a brief meeting with the city planner and spoke with the building commissioner, and I'm going through the documents that you presented to me to work and see what the remedy for the situation is. So moving forward, we'll be having some action taken on it. Thank you.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Next item on the agenda, the motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Unanimous. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody.